can get started. Well, first of all, welcome everyone. We're so grateful that you're all here, and we hope you learn lots, and we appreciate your time. And we'd like to start by thanking Malena. We'll talk about her in a minute, but Malena, thank you for being our agent presenter today and taking all your time out from your week and month and day to prepare and do this session. We appreciate you. Today, today we're going to be on, sorry, let's go back one screen. I'm just going to say the name of this session. Sorry, today, hopefully you're in the right room. We're going to be doing Do Your Company Policy Setup Right. So that's today's webinar, today's monthly HUG webinar. Okay. I should start out by saying, we should start out with the screen, Jennifer. Talk and then never introduce myself. My name's Amelia Yock. I'm the Executive Director for HUG, and I'm here with Jennifer Thompson. She does special projects and webinar management and all of those things, and I couldn't do this job without her. So here's our contact information. If you need anything, you can reach out to us. Okay, next. Most of you have probably been to our website by now, but if not, there's the URL. You can go there for lots of different resources. There's the library, recorded webinars, info on customer advisory boards, all those kinds of things. And we hope you'll check it out and enjoy some of the benefits from that. And our Facebook page, we have grown this immensely recently. We have over 2,100 members now. This is a wonderful resource to communicate with other Hawksoft users, get ideas, share what you're doing, you know, answer questions, ask questions. There's also a resource section in there with some files and documents that other agents decided to share with you and with their peers. And so if you're not already a member of the HUG Facebook group, I encourage you to do that. That is the URL, the facebook.com/groups/Hawksoft. We'd love to have you join us there. And I think this may be the last slide that I'm doing. I'm excited to announce that we'll be in Orlando, May 11th through the 13th. I need to fix that slide. Our welcome reception will be on the 11th. This is for our national conference. We have an annual national conference with about 400 agents. We cover 30+ topics, breakout sessions. We'll be talking about the cloud, all those kinds of things. We'll be at the Rosen Center Hotel in May and hope to see you there. There's the registration link on the screen there if you need that. And you'll probably have already gotten several emails from me about that, but I wanted to just do a shout out for that conference. Okay, and I'm going to turn the time over to Jennifer, who's going to go over some housekeeping things. And again, thank you for being here.
Hey everybody, as we're progressing through the webinar, we want to make sure that you know how to communicate with us. The best way is to use the Q&A. So if you have a question that you want Molina to answer, please put it into the Q&A area rather than chat, just simply because it helps us monitor and respond to all your questions. The chat area can just get it becomes quite large if everybody starts commenting there. If you just want to make a comment, feel free to use the chat area for that. And if you're having any problems hearing us, you might want to switch from listening through your computer to dial in. You can click down by there's a button down there where you can mute yourself, and it looks like a little phone icon. If you click on that, you can switch to phone, and it'll give you the phone number to call in. And then last of all, if you have to get up and leave for any reason, we are going to be recording this webinar. So within 24 hours, we'll send you a link to the recorded webinar, and then it will also get posted on our website. So if you miss anything, or you know, sometimes people say, can you go back and show us that again? Sometimes we, just based on time, we feel like we can't. You'll still be able to see it because you can go back and watch the recording. And lastly, we have Molina Farrell here, who is our presenter. And Molina, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll let you take it over.
Sure. I am the president of Cedar Risk Management. It is a P&C insurance agency in Flemington, New Jersey. I've been doing insurance for 24 years now, which doesn't seem real, but it is. And we've been with Hawksoft for 5 years now. It was the best decision that we made for our agency probably in the last decade, was moving to Hawksoft. So I'm ecstatic to be able to hopefully give you guys a couple tips, a little bit of knowledge. My contact information is right here. If you want to reach out to me, give me a call, shoot me an email. I'm also on the HUG Facebook group. I try and type in a lot on that. So if you see me on there, just say hi or ask me questions, or shoot me a message through there as well. So the three main areas that we're going to go through today are setting up a new carrier. I call it a client file, how to set up your commercial coverage templates, and then how to do the actual policy company setup for a new carrier. I do them in this specific order. Well, obviously the coverage templates is a one and done type deal, but I always start with the new carrier client file and then do the policy company setup, and I'll explain to you why as we go on. But let's just hop right in and start working on it. So this is what I consider to be the client files, whether it be a customer, a prospect, a vendor, a carrier, an agency contact, whatever it happens to be. I tell our team, whatever you're doing, however you're doing it, this should always be the very first thing that you do is enter a prospect, enter a customer, enter a carrier. And because I'm always telling them that, I'm always telling myself that. So that's why I definitely start here, but it also will make sense in about probably 20 minutes why we start here. So I'm going to enter it in a new carrier, and we're just going to call it Molena's Insurance because I've always wanted to be that cool. The number one absolute most important key to entering the carrier file is adding in your contacts and giving every single solitary one of them a description. So we're just going to say me. And we're going to say email. Redo. And we're going to say I'm the marketing rep. And then we're going to add a second one just so you guys can see. So in my opinion, two most important things, putting in your carrier file, and when you're in there, putting in every single contact person, every single email address, specifically the email addresses so that you can use them going forward, but you give them a description. If you see down here in the bottom corner, I put a description for one. I did not put a description for the other. In my mind, that's going to make it confusing for people down the road. So if I saw that I did this, I would go back and I would change this and I would say, make sure it's correct. I'm not sure how many people are aware that when you go in to send an email, is there any attachments? There's no attachments. If you click on the boxes up here at the top, and usually this would say customer, when you click at the boxes up at the top, it will automatically bring down your description for every single email address that you put in here. This saves every one of my employees so much time when they're trying to figure out, especially for a Hartford, for a Travelers, for a carrier where you have personal and commercial, where you have a marketing rep for personal lines, commercial lines, when you have underwriters for middle market, small commercial, whatever it happens to be. If you give them all a description right here, and you just list, this is the personal lines marketing rep, this is the small commercial underwriter, makes everybody's life so much easier, so much better when they're trying to figure out who to contact at this carrier. It's a little thing, but believe me, employees love this. It makes their lives easier, and anything I can do to make their lives easier is an absolute win in my book. So once I make sure that I have the carrier file set up, I'll go in.
Hey, Molina, before you go there, I'm going to ask you this question. Donna wanted to know, so you recommend adding each contact as a personal profile as opposed to a contact associated only with the client? I'm not sure. Yeah. I wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, I like having every single profile having a contact. I think it's super important to make sure that especially when, like I said, when you start having personal lines people versus commercial lines people versus small commercial and middle market and inland marine and whatever else it happens to be. I give everybody a profile, and I put in all of their contact information. I basically make it their business card within Hawksoft. Their profile becomes their business card. It also makes it easier. We all know underwriters change, marketing reps change. I'll go into that profile that says this is the marketing rep profile, and I'll just change their contact information in there. I find it, if I'm making sure that I'm doing it the same way every time for every client, for every carrier, then I'm never not going to do that. It's always going to be done the same way. So, and my employees are always going to do it the same way so that we just keep consistent and we're always doing it the same way.
Yeah, that is really important. I think that's a lot of what you're going to show today has to do with being consistent.
Yep.
Great,
Absolutely.
thank you.
So then we go into the policy company setup. Before we dive into creating Molena's insurance, I love using the commercial coverage templates. We set ours up probably a week or two before we actually went live on Hawksoft. And then as we added in each of our carriers, we copied the information. I don't know how many people are familiar with the lines of business and coverages section. This, to me, again, blew my mind, blew my employees' mind. They think it's the greatest thing ever. I'm just going to show you a couple different examples of how you can work this. So when you go into the commercial coverage template, obviously it's got a whole bunch of just basic things, and you'll see when you add in a line of business or a policy for any one of your clients, they're going to have things, you know, general liability is going to say general aggregate. What you might not have set up is your actual defaults and your actual limits over here. You'll know immediately if you have your limits and your deductibles and your defaults set up, if when you enter in a new client, they all fill in. Most of the time, it's going to look similar to this. Workers' comp says each accident, disease, policy limit, disease, each employee. Everybody who's done workers' comp knows that there's really only 2 or 3 options for each of these coverages. So what I do is I go in and I make sure that those coverage options are here. So now every single time that I enter in a new workers' comp policy and it floods over that there's 3 different options, each accident, disease, policy limit, disease, each employee, it's going to give me the options of dropping down and clicking 100,000, 500,000, 1 million. And I can set 1 million as the default that automatically fills in as soon as I enter in a new workers' comp policy. I think that's amazing. I think this is the greatest thing ever, and it just makes it easier for our employees to not really have to think about it. It's just there. They know that, oh, one too many zeros. They know that for the vast majority of the lines of business that we have, unless it's a weird thing, you know, there's always going to be a one-off, and that's okay. You don't have to have everything in here, but as long as you have just the basics of what your agency puts or what you guys write typically, I think, you know, that's pretty awesome. The other thing that it can do, and we're going to go here, what I like to do for employment practices, for professional liability, for directors and officers, for employee benefits, anything that has a retroactive date, you'll see you can put in your limits. You can set things as defaults, but down here it says enter new item here. So I'm going to do that, and we're going to just look to see if retroactive date is an option. It's not. Okay, so it's not defined. I'm going to manually type in retroactive date. Now, every time that we enter in a new employment practices policy, the liability limit's going to come up. If I put in any drop downs or defaults, they're going to pop up. But it's also automatically going to come up saying a line retroactive date, which is going to prompt my employees to fill it out. If the line retroactive date's not there, they might not think about the fact that's a really important thing that we need to know, and that never, one, EPLI policies very rarely download, so it's not automatically going to be there. And two, it's super important. We need to know this. In my mind, it should be on the coverage page, so let's manually put it on the coverage page. Now that I've put it in this section here on the commercial coverage template, whenever I put in a prospect with commercial lines, or whenever I put in whenever I copy these coverages over to my other companies, like I'm going to show you in a little bit, retroactive date's going to be on there, and it's going to be permanently on there, and it's just going to be something that pops up as soon as you put in that line of business, and my employees won't have to think about remembering that they need to add this coverage in. Again,
hey, Molina, that's so good, because I love that idea that you're setting it up for them to be successful instead of them having to remember to do these things themselves. And how long do you think it took you to set that up the first time? I mean, it's kind of a one and done, or do you go in there a lot and alter it, or?
No, I mean, the coverage template in my mind is a catch-all. It is a general. It is a, you know, this is what we would want to see for every single universal GL policy ever. Once you get into adding those lines of coverage, you can obviously tweak them when you add in the specific carrier that we're going to add in right now. So I'll show you in a couple seconds. You can tweak it if, you know, Hartford only writes these limits. It won't do 100,000 coverage, whatever. All right, so then take it off. When you're in Hartford, take it off that specific line of business. The coverage template is, again, a general, and then the one you can copy all of that over, and then just kind of tweak them a little bit for the different carriers.
Right. Right. And that kind of actually leads into a question that Catherine had asked. She had said, if you set up these defaults, can you amend it on the client file? And you were
Yes.
just saying, this is the default for the whole system. You can copy it over to a company, but you can even amend it on a per company basis. But finally, when you get to the client,
Yep.
you can still amend it even on a per client basis.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's, I think, the beauty of it. You know, if you set up, again, the workers' comp, we had one really random workers' comp policy that had a $2 million limit. In the 24 years that I've been doing insurance, I've only ever seen one workers' comp policy that had a $2 million limit on all lines of coverage, no umbrella, just the base workers' comp policy. I would never put that in the coverage template because I'm probably not going to see that again. I probably wouldn't put it in the carrier template because I don't think the carrier is going to be willing to do it again. So the only place that had that limit was on that particular client's workers' comp policy. Could I put it in everywhere else? Yeah, but it's never going to be used. So let's just leave the template alone using the 100, 500, 100, or 1 million limits. Let's leave the client or the carrier specific one alone because they're probably not going to do it again. It only needed to be changed on the actual client policy tab.
Great. No, I'm going to back up just a moment because I have a couple people who've asked questions. I think they were a little confused at the beginning. They were saying, so Jackie was saying, just curious, I know we're talking about carrier and company setup, but do you also add a description for the contact in a regular client file as well?
Absolutely.
I feel like it's redundant in a client file unless there's a specific reason. And then secondly, Dan says, it looks like you're creating this as a client record, not an insurance carrier record under tools company policy setup, and he's getting confused. So I think what we want to say is initially you were creating a carrier client file with all of the company information.
Yep.
You can set some of that stuff up in the system area as well, but what's the advantage of doing it here?
I will show you. Policy company setup. So we're actually going to go ahead and do a new I use this in 2 clicks and half a second. All of the contact information that I put in the carrier client file automatically just moved over, linked to the new company that I'm creating. And now every time that you go into a client file on a client tab and say, I'm working with Molena's insurance company, and you want to send an email, you want to contact someone, you want to do whatever, all of the contact information that we put into the carrier client file is now attached to the carrier company setup, and will go with every single policy tab that has that company information. In my mind, this is one of the true genius things behind the scenes of Hawksoft, where it takes all the information you put into a whole bunch of different areas and make sure that they're always linked. So if I ever want to go into any part of this and change the underwriter's name or the underwriter's contact information, it's going to carry over in all the other sections. And when I right click on an attachment and say send email to underwriter, and I click the drop down for the carriers, all of the email addresses that I just put in this section, because they're linked now, it's automatically going to give me the options. And it's because I put in a description, I'm going to know, all right, well, this is the endorsement department, this is the marketing rep, this is the underwriter, this is the inland marine person, whatever it happens to be. It's connecting everything together, putting everything in my opinion, putting everything in its right place so that when you need it from anywhere, you can find it from anywhere.
Right, and not only that, I feel like this area where at the top where you show the contact information is fairly limited. So if you have multiple underwriters, multiple claims departments, that wouldn't have fit on this screen. So I think that's why they came back to create the carrier client file, because you can have as many contacts there as you want, and then link it to your company in the policy company setup area. And we've had a couple of people who said mind blown, brilliant. So I think some people are really happy to hear about this.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously it says you can remove the link. You can change it if you accidentally clicked on the wrong one. I mean, I think when we first started this and we purchased a couple agencies, we ended up with like 3 progressive client files and 3 progressive carrier files. So, you know, we had to merge them all into one and unlink it here and then link it to the correct one. And, you know, sometimes it does get a little bit confusing, making sure that you're linked to the correct one. But once you are, dude, so much easier. Life just gets a little bit easier for everybody in your office. And you know, again, smarter way to do it.
So I'm going to ask, I know John Barnes from Hawksoft has joined us, and I think he might be the best person to answer this question. John, I don't know if you could unmute yourself, but the question Trish had was, she said, we're getting ready to set up everything like you just suggested, but does anyone think the internet version coming out soon, they hope, will affect this? So John, do you know, like, if you're setting stuff up in here, do you feel like there's anything to be concerned about with the newer version of Hawksoft that would make you do anything different at this point?
At this point, absolutely not. One of the big things our dev team is working to do is anything that you have done in Hawksoft now will transfer over into our, Hawksoft 6. And, we want it to be as seamless as possible when the agencies are able to start transitioning over. One thing I would like to add to what Molina's been talking about with the carrier client file, under that description, you can also use that to say, Bob at Nationwide is really good at a particular line of business, and maybe you have 2 agents that know that and the other people in your office don't. So then, you could designate, which underwriters, and I hate to say this, but after working at Farmers, I know this, all the agencies know certain underwriters are better to work with than other ones. Mm-hmm. And so you could, tag them as, a favored contact.
Very true.
That's about as politically correct as I could put it.
And, I think some of the other things you could do, I know in our webinar last month, we had the suggestion that you could put in phone trees and extensions and all of that other stuff in the description as well, just to help people get to the right place faster. Somebody asked, can we link multiple carriers in the company setup to the same carrier client file? We tend to duplicate a carrier several times in the company setup to account for different commission tiers. think you probably could. I don't know that I've ever tried to link, but I think it's just a
Yes.
link from a carrier client file to a company, and I don't see why you couldn't link the same carrier client file to multiple companies in the setup. Would you agree with that, John?
You can. Yes.
Yeah. Somebody said, would we have a coverage template for personal lines of business?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can jump back to that.
Home auto. I use the home and auto prospect, which is essentially the same thing. I don't believe we have one that's set up. I'm thinking back to my system, not the demo data. I don't believe we have one that's set up specifically as a coverage template like these are.
You know, one thing you could do, you could always create a template company and set it up the way you want it, and then copy that entire company over, you know, create the company. You could do that. That would be one way to do it. And, you know, Danita was saying, so the link shows the additional context from the carrier client file. She said, I'm missing something. Aside from seeing that in the gear level, how does this help me? And this kind of goes back to what you were showing at the beginning, which is when you're back in your client file, not in the carrier client file, when you're actually on a client that has all those, has that company, if you go to send an email, then you're able to access all the associated email addresses with that company that's on the policy, correct?
Yeah, so we're just going to change, we're just going to change this workers' comp policy to be my insurance company. We're going to right click, we're going to email, send as attachment, policy carrier. For me as the agency owner, knowing that the marketing reps are changing, knowing that the underwriters are changing, knowing that, you know, whatever department heads, whatever it happens to be, the contact information, I typically get to know first. And if I'm having a really good day, I remember to immediately notify the rest of my team. If I'm having a bad day, then a week or two or a month goes by before I remember to tell someone else in the commercial lines department, hey, by the way, our small commercial underwriter that we never talked to at this particular company changed. I, for whatever reason, have it drilled into my brain whenever I get one of those emails from a carrier to immediately go in and change this section. I immediately go in and I change the contact information on the carrier client file, so that even if I forget to tell my team for a month, when they come in here and they go to the policy carrier section, the email information is correct, the contact information is correct. If they go into the customer or the company file, the contact information is correct. If someone's just like, hey, I need to reach out to the Travelers marketing rep, you know, and they type in Travelers Insurance and they pull this up, that information is correct. I don't know why my brain works this way. I don't know why I can't forward an email when I can remember to come in here and change that. It's just the way I've trained my brain that I will always go in and change this. And I find that, and my employees have said, if I forget to forward them the email, that's perfectly fine as long as I always update this. And they always update this. And they use this 27 times a day, whether they're processing changes, whether they're emailing underwriters about potential new lines of business, whatever, you know, whatever it happens to be. I think having all of this information in Hawksoft and having all the information always be right is just such a huge deal to the vast majority of our employees. Obviously, there's some people that don't get any, you know, bang out of it, but so many people benefit from this that, in my opinion, it is the first step to do. It is the first step to make sure that you have correct. This is done, and then you move on to setting up the actual policy within the gear.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the other benefit of having it in a carrier client file is that everybody can access the client file. Not everybody can get into the policy company setup because some agencies have limited that to admins. So
Yep.
having it all in one spot where every single employee can access it is a great idea. And I think we're kind of heading in the next direction, which is going back into our company policy setup. Teresa had wanted to say, so we should have set up our personal and commercial templates prior to creating our carriers, and then we hit copy two. She's asking kind of like, and I think that's where we're going next. So I'm going to just say we're going to answer that live because that's where I think you're going pretty quickly.
Yep. So obviously, as you're going down, I just go down all of the tabs on the left and answer all the questions. Agency code, if you have that, you know, as long as it's not a wholesaler or someone, put in the agency code, whatever it happens to be. Company website. We do use this for probably the vast majority of our, especially our larger national carriers. I don't know how many people have really explored putting in the login information, but if you use HawkLink and if you use Chrome or the internet within HawkSoft, so there's the website tab or the website button up on the ribbon bar, or drop down, go to website. This can store usernames and passwords for all of your employees. I like it. I know there's a lot of agencies that are not very fond of this just because it's a little tedious to set it up every single time for each different company, but we use it. I would suggest at least trying it and playing out with it. Policy information. Another tip/trick that I really like is using the program name as the formal name for two reasons. Up here, we've got Molena's Insurance Company, which is the name of the insurance company. This section right here is used for, in my mind, the writing paper. So this could be a wholesaler. This could be Liberty Mutual. This section right here would be Lloyd's of London if it's a wholesaler. This could be, what's a Liberty company? Ohio Security, which no one really has, I mean, there's no consumer out there who knows what Ohio Security is. They all know Liberty Mutual because Liberty Mutual's the name, the icon, the symbol. They don't know that they're actually on Ohio Security Insurance Company paper. I like making sure that the program and the NAIC list are kind of duplicated, and it's a little weird, and I'm going to make up numbers because I truly don't know what the NAIC numbers are for these two companies, but we're just going to say Ohio Security, the NAIC is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I actually kind of like putting it here. And I will show you why. We're going to go back to Thompson Landscaping and we're going to change it. When you go into a client file and you pull up the NAICs, it's fantastic. They have the NAICs in random order. I have no idea if I have, especially if it's a company like Liberty Mutual. Liberty Mutual's got like 18,000 different companies below them. I don't know that Ohio Security is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I just know that there's a whole list of numbers over here, and there's a whole long list of programs over here. So Lloyd's of London, I have no idea. I didn't put the NAIC in. I don't know which one of the NAICs it could possibly be. So in my mind, if you pick, or if you put in what the NAIC is after the program name, when you go ahead and click it over here, one, you know you clicked the right one. Two, when you're doing a certificate of insurance, whether you're doing an evidence of property, whether you're doing whatever it happens to be, they're not going to come back and yell at you for not putting the NAIC. And I'm sure every person on here has had that conversation with the mortgage company, with the certificate holder, with the whomever, saying, oh, you didn't put the 5-digit code on there. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. This didn't pass our, you know, our measures and safety security. I can never remember these numbers, and there's so many of them. So when I'm going in and setting up my companies, I make sure that I'm putting whatever NAICs I know, and then as we're adding them, it's usually a couple seconds to look it up online to make sure that you know, oh wait, Lloyd's of London is actually, I'm just making up a number, I think it's really important. And I think, again, you're making life easier for your CSRs. You're making life easier for your processors. You're making life easier for your salespeople, for your entire team that at some point in their career is going to need this information. It's a tiny little thing. I think it's important. It makes their life easier. They're going to be a lot happier with me. Any questions? Are we good? Before I go on?
No questions, but somebody said, thank you, great idea. We've been struggling with the lineup of NAIC codes.
It's not it's not pretty.
She's not the only person, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. Use custom policy titles. I love this. I love this for very specific situations. We use custom policy titles a lot for commercial lines, probably not quite as much for personal lines, but we could. I think a policy custom title should be, if there's a base line of coverage, so general liability is a perfect example. We have a ton of large contractors. The large contractor, when it comes to having general liability, is going to have his general liability policy. He might have a snowplow liability policy. They might have a pollution liability policy. The base policy for all three of those is general liability coverage. So when you go into the client tab, you're going to have general liability, general liability, general liability, or GLIA, GLIA, GLIA. I can hear my employees getting frustrated just at the thought of looking at that. You'll also see often package, package, package. You'll have the actual commercial package. You might have a management liability package. There might be tech E&O that also has a cyber liability. There's so many different options. So in my mind, if at any point you would have duplicate titles here, that's when you need to get down and be specific. There will be times when, yes, there's going to be 2 true packages or 2 true box for a client, whatever it happens to be, maybe 2 autos. But if you can lessen that as much as possible, that's when I think your employees really start loving you and you become superstar. So we use custom policy titles for that very specific thing. So I'll have pollution. I will have management liability. We have, good one. We have a couple clients that have a whole bunch of drones and they have a drone GL policy. I think there are times when it might not be as, you don't need to have a house or a 2-family house, 3-family house, whatever it happens to be. They can all be houses. But I think when, like I said, when you have something that the base type of insurance policy can be in, general liability, pollution liability, snowplow, it's possible that one client can have all 3 of those, and it's going to show up either as package, 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 or as GL, 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 and my employees are going to yell at me. I try and, in those situations, make their lives easier, and I will put custom policy titles in there for them. We have one client who's got 212 lots that he's been building on over the course of 5 years, so the number of builder's risk policies is excessive, and there's nothing I can do about that. But he also has a pollution, a snowplow, and a GL policy, and at least I made their lives a little bit easier there. Line of business coverage. When you first add a new carrier, this is going to be blank. It is always going to be blank. You can choose to manually add things, or you can go up to the commercial coverage template that you just created, copy. And we're going to go down here to Molina, and we're going to right click, and we're going to paste special, because the only thing we want to copy, and the only thing that is of any importance right now, is the line of business and coverages. We're going to replace. We're going to go in, And everything, including the workers' comp that I typed in, including the EPLI that I manually typed in, all of those things just copied over in half a click, took half a second. And you know what? Okay, so they don't do these, and I know that this client's never going to do that. So I can specifically say that for this one insurance company, I don't want that. Or on this insurance company, I want to make it 2 million. So again, like we were saying before, you can specify things just for this insurance company's line of business. But all I had to do was right-click copy, right-click paste special, and here are all my lines of business. Mind blown when I found out about this. And let me tell you, my employees, like you could hear them screaming. We're in Jersey. You could probably hear them screaming in Wisconsin, Jennifer. Probably could hear them in Wisconsin.
I think I'd be pretty excited if I didn't have to fill this in every single time, where I had a drop down to select from instead. You know, I mean, to me, it just makes it so much easier to use.
Absolutely.
And we do have a couple questions. Somebody said, did you create the commercial coverage template you're referring to? And yes, you did create that. When we first went into the company info setup, you started by going to the commercial coverage template, and that's where you were adding all those template, you know, all those coverage things in the middle of the webinar. So Dan, I think if you go back and watch the recording and kind of catch that middle section, she did create all of that in that commercial coverage template. Ricky wanted to know, she said the custom policy titles, we have condo associations that label each condo with a name. Could we use that area to name the TBAS, the tabs? I'm sorry, that's what she spelled it again for the tabs. I don't know if you would, because you want them to each just tell you that they're condos, but would you want a condo type? I don't know.
Same thing, like I said, we have one client who's got, I believe right now he's up to 78 builder's risk policies. We use, I believe it's the physical location. Which one is it? And I'm not looking, it's not a home, so I can't see it.
If you go up to the link to, if you go up to link to at the top, I think I've got it linked to a personal client. It's got a home.
And I will double check with my employees. It might be account number where they put the address.
Oh, you know where you can put the address is actually, well, actually, I was going to say, you know what, you can put it, if you go to, click on the client screen, at the client, just the client, yeah. And if you go to policies.
Oh, yeah.
You can, yeah. You could add to this list of policies, you could right click in this grid and you could add the location to the, you could customize the columns. We're kind of getting off a little bit, but you could go down to address down there and you could add it, and then that allows you to see the address of the location that, you know, if you have multiple condos, that would help you differentiate between them. I don't know, Ricky, if that would I don't know if that really answers your question, because you're saying they give the condo association labels each condo with a name. I don't quite know what that would end up being.
Yeah, I think that, you know, my concern with putting them in my concern with putting them in as a custom policy title would be you would have so many custom policy titles for that one insurance company. It might be too much, but it's definitely something you can play around with. You know, try it. If it works for you guys, do it. Like, heck yeah. If it works for you, awesome idea.
Yep. Bill said, he's like, did I miss something? He said, the policy company set up commercial, all other only show prospect. So I'm thinking, Bill, you're saying that maybe when you go over to that commercial tab, you don't have the template things. And I would say if you don't have those, I would maybe give Hawksoft support a call and ask why, because I don't know why they wouldn't be there under the commercial lines. And somebody said, can you show how you added policies again on the client tab? Can you show? And we have a couple people wanting to repeat a few things, just saying, can you show how to copy and paste the special again?
Yep. Copy and paste the coverages?
Yeah, the coverages.
Okay. So the commercial coverage template is the one that I was playing around with, and I'm just going to right click on it, and I'm going to copy, and then go down to the one that you want to change, right click on it, and paste special. And then you're just going to choose lines of business coverages and click OK, and then replace. Or append, depending on if you're going in and changing, something in your coverage template. But if you're doing brand new, replace is what I use.
And somebody said, can you show how you added the policies again on the client tab? I'm thinking, and maybe this had, I don't know, Ray, was that about how you would add like the different policy titles, like how it would have different policy titles? Not sure if you could elaborate on your question a little bit more. You said that was the other 78 builder risk policies.
I can show you what it looks like. I don't know what I wanted to do. Insert policy. So when you do the custom policy title and you pick GL, this is where you change it down here. Oh, I didn't actually pick me. This is where it shows up. So whatever you down here, so I picked general liability. We'll pretend we'll put in all the information. I picked snow. Okay. Yep. 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 And now it shows up here as snow. Is that what they were looking for?
I'm not sure. He was kind of saying it. I think it had to do with having 78 builders risk policies and how you, I mean, if you've just got that many on there, it's probably a big, there's not much you can do about that. It's got 78 builders risks all the way across. Yeah. And it's probably, I don't know that there's a good way to manage, a better way to manage it than what it's just going to look like.
No, yeah, he's a large builder in New York. He purchased, I want to say in like 2015, he purchased a ridiculous amount of acreage in Orange County and is just building houses one at a time. And he emails us a lot and says, hey, I need a new builder's risk policy. So, if we were in my Hawksoff system, I'd be able to show, like, it just, if I'm not mistaken, I believe we're at 78 or 79 builders risk policies over the course of, 3 or 4 years with this guy, which is fantastic. It's just, it's a lot of the same name, the same policy title. So there was a different way to do it. I think because they're all truly builders risk policies, they need to be titled builders risk policies. In this case, like I was saying, snowplow versus GL, they're both a GL-based policy. I think that's a really good example of when we would use a custom policy title to change how it looks in Hawksoft.
Right. I think, the big thing to be careful of is those policy titles display what you see on the screen, and they can help you differentiate between the types of policies that they are. And even though something can be a general liability policy, literally, it has different titles that you call it or the company calls it, and that's when you use it. That's the most important time to use it. I will say that if you get into using custom policy titles, you want to make sure that everyone's using them consistently, because if you don't, you'll be back to attending database cleanup seminars. So make sure that when you're using custom policy titles, everybody knows what they're for, and you're checking these things regularly so that they're accurate. Priscilla wanted to know, kind of going back into that company setup, do you recommend using policy forms in any way? And also, when you add the carrier the way you did, it requires a policy number. Yeah, we just didn't bother putting in policy numbers because we were going fast. But she
Yeah.
wanted to know, do you use the policy forms in any way?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially, again, you know, I know we've been harping on GL policies, but that's a perfect example. We do use claims made occurrence. Not so much OCP. We don't write a ton of them for most of our carriers, but for the claims made occurrence drop downs, absolutely we use these. Especially, you know, it's really important for anyone who's looking at the client to know which one that it is. So we do use them. Yeah, absolutely.
And Scott Richardson said, we put the builder's risk address and the account number as mentioned, and he says that works great for them.
Yeah, I feel like they do it in the account number field just because it's like the first one that pops up, so it's the easiest for them to search for. And I know they've started using the client policy screens as well. I don't know if that's taken on quite as much because I know they're so used to putting it in the account number that that's just kind of where everybody's brain has been for so long. Neither one is wrong, I don't think. You know, in my opinion, again, as long as it works for you guys, be consistent, do it the same way every time, you're fine.
Yep. So we're all caught up on questions. I think I'm going to just give people a moment if they have any final questions. But one of the reasons I think this webinar is so important is just when you're setting up everything for the first time, if you get it right at the beginning, it can save you so much time in doing your work on a day in, day out basis. And it can prevent a lot of cleanup later. But that doesn't mean what you've learned today, if you've already gone and done, you know, you've been using your system and you never did any of this setup, that you can't benefit from doing some of these same things. It's very easy to go set up the carrier client file and link it into your existing companies if that's where you're at. You can also go back and do those templates for new companies, because then anytime you add a new company, you can actually even go back to that. If you set up that template area, you could go through your existing companies and add them to the carrier templates, you know, each carrier now, so that going forward it would be there for any new policies that you create. So there's still some beneficial reason to be taking this information, even if you've been using the system for a while. We do have one last question. It says, Kim says, can you review the difference between unique name, formal name, and program name, please? This is in your setup under, yeah, your company there. Got unique name, yeah.
Honestly, John, I don't know the difference between unique name and formal name. I know the difference between them and program, but what's the difference between these two?
Maybe John could pipe in.
Unique name would be like progressive. Yeah. Can you not hear me? Because I'm
no,
talking.
We can now. Yep, sorry, we were just a little behind you.
Okay. Oh, sorry. So the unique name would be like progressive, and the formal name would be Progressive Insurance Companies. So the unique name is kind of a shorthand of a long name. Like some people might put Lloyd's for the unique name instead of Lloyd's of London. Or
okay.
And then does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I've always just copied and pasted one into the other and used them as the same. I don't know if that's wrong, but that's just how we always do it.
A lot of people do.
Yeah. But then I think that the rest of the question was the difference between these names and the program name. Again, I view these names as either your wholesaler. So it could be risk placement services. It could be, trying to think of another, Amwins. It could be Crum & Foster. Here, it could be, like I said, the Mutual Insurance, could be Travelers, Hartford, anything, or Progressive. The program name is, in my mind, should always be the writing paper. It should always be Ohio Security Insurance Company that has the NAIC. It should be Drive Insurance by Progressive that has the NAIC. It should be Hartford Financial, I forget what it, Benefits Insurance Company that has the NAIC. It should be, what is, music is Mesa Underwriting, Mesa Underwriting Insurance Services Company. I always forget that one.
MAUC?
M-E, Mesa is music. But it's a selective, I think it's a selective underwriting company. So this should be the name that you want to show on the certificate of insurance certificate of insurance, on the ID card, on the evidence of property. This should be the formal, true insurance company. The company that, again, on the ID card, it's not going to say Liberty Mutual Insurance, because Liberty Mutual Insurance doesn't technically write the insurance policy. Ohio Security, Excelsior, Peerless, those are the companies that actually should be showing up and have the code on your ID card. Certificates of insurance, mortgage company.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was going to say, I think this kind of comes back to, we've had a couple people now ask, how do you set up the wholesaler? And I think that kind of fits into what you're saying, which is like your unique name is going to be your wholesaler name, probably copied right down to your formal name.
Mm-hmm. This is exactly what we do for wholesale. We do the same thing for wholesalers that we do for insurance companies. So this could be Scottsdale.
Right. And then you're writing, like you said, the writing company, what it is that wrote the insurance, and you have that check mark in use program as formal name, and that's important because that's what carries it through to show up on all those areas you were just starting to mention, the certificates, the evidence, so.
Back here, and that you have the NAIC matching on the two means that when you do your certificate of insurance, the certificate of insurance is going to use your program. It's going to put this name, and you can pull this NAIC on your certificate, on, again, your ID cards, on your evidence of property, whatever it happens to be. Having this little box checked, having the writing company here, and putting the NAIC at the end of it means that you can't miss the information that the mortgage companies or certificate holders, whomever, are looking for, or cops on the ID card, the information that the people are looking for on those forms.
And John, somebody said they were instructed to use, that if using a wholesaler, to leave the formal name blank, but is there any reason why, if you're saying use program as formal name, is there a reason why you'd have to use formal, is there a reason behind that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, but as you guys were just talking about, if they left the formal name blank, it would force it, to go to the program name. It might have just some, a different way to avoid that. So.
Okay, sure. There's always more than one way to do things a lot of times, so certainly possible. Someone said, do you check your employee sales reports daily to make sure they entered the new business or renewal policies correctly? What is your process to audit and make sure they've selected the appropriate lines of business and policy titles? This is quite a big, I think we'd have to have almost another webinar to answer this, Molina, but do you have anything short to say about that?
I do spot check. I don't spot check daily. I spot check when I think about it. My employees are, I would say, I personally think they're the best. But I think they're really good, and they're really conscientious of doing this the way that I've shown you guys now, because they find it easiest to do it this way. So that's what they do. But yeah, I don't check often, but I will go in and just poke around every now and then and see. I think that's the easiest way to answer that question.
Yeah. Marianne, I don't know that you're going to be able to answer this, Molina. Maybe John. It says, if we go in and change and fix programs info in our existing setup, attach NAIC numbers, what's going to happen to all the policies that are existing in our system? I feel like if they were to go in, they would have to reselect them again for that to show up, wouldn't they?
As invalid.
Yeah.
And then you'll have, there'll be an option to drop down when you click on that one, and it's kind of hard to explain without seeing it. But it will show up as invalid, and then you can drop down to it. I believe you can also do, and John, tell me if I'm wrong, can you do a data replace for that?
Like if you're just adding the NAIC code
Yes,
to the
you can
program
do a data
name.
replace.
That's something, Marianne, I think what I would do is I would call into support maybe. Yeah, I would maybe call into support and kind of see if somebody could help you figure out the best way to do it, because it's probably not something we can just answer easily by showing you in the system right now, and they could walk you through it.
Right, but I'm fairly certain you can do a data replace on that, and it'll just swap them all out.
Somebody was saying that they can't see a commercial umbrella line of business, and I think that's because that'd be an equipment floater, wouldn't? That's what probably Hawksoft considers, or not an umbrella. I'm sorry, not a commercial, not an equipment floater, but they don't see a commercial umbrella line of business. Sorry, I was thinking of the memory. It is right there.
Yep. If you click on Add LOBs, it gives you all of the ones that are there that aren't currently selected. So you can, it might just be that you have to click on that and then add it in. So like cyber is automatically added to every insurance company. So if you click cyber and click OK, it'll drop down here at the bottom. So it might just be the one that you are on doesn't have that added. Click Add LOB and it'll come in. But it's umbrella-commercial, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And somebody said, age-long question, I'm sure you've heard it before, John. Why doesn't Hawksoft have all the companies and NAICs already in Hawksoft? Having worked for multiple management systems, I can tell you that everybody wants to know that. And, you know, I've even actually worked at a system where we preloaded it for everybody. And it wasn't actually a whole lot better because you'd have to go in there and deselect the ones you didn't want. So, I mean, I'd say it's a mixed bag. If you preload everything for them, there's so many companies and so many NAIC codes that you'd have to eliminate that, you know, I get it though. I get it. I think we've kind of hit all the questions right now. And what I really want to say, John, thanks for popping in here and joining with us and answering some of those questions. And Molina, thank you so much for sharing this with us. I think a lot of people are going to really benefit from getting it right the first time and just trying to make things as easy as possible for all their employees. So thank you for sharing that knowledge with us.
Absolutely.
You want to pop up your contact information one last time? We'll just pop that up, and if anybody has questions where they want to get in contact with Molina after the webinar, great. It takes, usually we'll get the recorded webinar out to you within 24 hours, and then we'll email that to you, and then we will also post it on our website by the end of the week.
Awesome.
Thank you, everybody, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Have a great day.